Hey there, welcome to LSAT Demon Daily. I'm Eric Johansson, a teacher with LSAT Demon. Joining me is Nathan Fox, founder of LSATdemon.com and the weekly podcast Thinking LSAT. Today, an email from Anonymous. The subject is LSAT score dropping.
I've had some recent issues with my score dropping, and I'm trying to understand what I'm doing wrong. In late September and October, I was consistently scoring above 170 on my practice tests with a couple 174s and then a couple other tests that ranged from 171 to 173. For context, my diagnostic was a 156, so I was very happy with this improvement after studying for several months. I think you could do better than that, honestly. When you have a diagnostic of 156, I think you could end up in the mid to high 170s.
Mm-hmm.
So the first thing I would point out here is that, 171 to 174, don't get me wrong, that's great. That's awesome. I'm
Yeah,
glad
well
you've
done.
made the improvement you've made. But you're missing some questions, and every one of those questions that you're missing indicates another one that you kind of got lucky on. And so, you know, at 171 or whatever, you don't there's things you're not understanding. Like that's not the master of the test. And when there's things that you're not understanding, that means that sometimes you're going to get lucky and sometimes you're going to get unlucky. I can tell you where this is going to go, right? Like, okay, so
Mm-hmm.
then my scores are lower, and I think that indicates that I don't understand, or I've gotten worse, or whatever. Anonymous says, I signed up for the November LSAT based on these scores being in my goal range, but as the test approached, my practice scores dropped to never being able to break a 167 in the weeks leading up to the test. I took it anyway because I knew that those higher scores were in my range, but I just got my score back and it was a 165. I'm planning to keep going and not settle on this score and apply only when I have the score I want, at least in the low 170s. Great.
Good.
165 is that's totally within the normal error like
Yeah.
of 171 or 174.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody is going to
A
have
10-point range in your practice test scores is totally normal. I say this a lot, but when going into my first official test attempt, my recent practice test range was 167 to 180. It's just, there's a lot of
yeah,
variance. And part of that was I had the
yeah,
games, and sometimes you just bomb a single game and that tanks your score,
yeah.
but that sort of variance is normal.
Some days your focus is better. Some days you just get lucky. Some days you don't. And so 165, yeah, I mean, your 174s that you're so happy about, like those were a little bit lucky, right? You have to acknowledge that. Those are the best you've ever scored. Well, that like definitionally means that you got kind of lucky on those. Those were the outlying best scores. And you maybe got a little unlucky or on the 165, but not a lot unlucky. That's still only a 9-point range or a 10-point range inclusive. Um, Anonymous continues, I've always tried to follow your advice and slow down and not worry about the clock, but I can't explain why my score dropped after I had been doing consistently better. Was I burning myself out? It would be great to get your thoughts and advice. Thank you in advance. Anonymous. I'd love to know what Anonymous's accuracy is.
Yeah, that's a big question. And make that be the goal. I think that we would all benefit from looking for smaller victories or looking for victories in places that aren't related
Hmm.
to the practice test score. The key among
Hmm.
those being your accuracy. What was your accuracy? Okay, I only scored a 167 today, which is at the low end of my range, but I did so with 95% accuracy, 97% accuracy. Let that
Yeah.
be the victory. Or, oh,
Well,
I
that's not.
I understood something today that I had a breakthrough in my understanding of a particular question today. That is the victory for today. So don't get bent out of
Yeah.
shape over whatever your score was. Sorry, you were going to say.
I just think Anonymous knows that their problem is that their accuracy isn't high enough. They say, I've always tried to follow your advice to slow down and not worry about the clock. But let's be honest, you're finishing the sections, aren't you, Anonymous? I mean, like you're 165, you finished the sections, right? Well, that's your problem because if you do it our way and you finish your sections, you should never ever score below 170. Okay, I mean that sincerely. if you're finishing the sections, it means that you're like willing to vouch for, I got these questions right. You should just never be attempting number 25 if you don't think you got 1 through 24 right. Or, you know, 95% accuracy. I don't want to let perfect be the enemy of the good here. If there's one somewhere along the way that you were like, yeah, I don't know, that one I was missing something and I got as close as I could get and I picked an answer and I just decided to keep it moving. But I would be much more excited about somebody who is scoring 165 to 174 by only doing the first 20 questions in each section. That to me is a better candidate for improvement than somebody who is scoring 165 to 174 by finishing the sections.
Mm-hmm.
You can achieve all of these scores doing not the entire section. In fact, it's easier to achieve these scores without finishing the entire section.
Yes.
So your problem, Anonymous, I mean, I know I'm diagnosing you from 40,000 feet, but I'm pretty sure that you're doing too many questions. You're not understanding all the questions that you're missing, obviously, but you're also not understanding many of the questions that you're getting right. And so sometimes that turns out to be a 174 because you just got a bunch of shit right that you didn't really understand. Other times it turns out to be a 165 because there's so much of the test that you're not actually understanding.
Anonymous asks about burnout. What do you think?
I don't see any evidence here. Like, it's not, Anonymous doesn't say I'm studying 4 hours a day. I think it's that you're not treating each question like you need to harvest 1 point from every question you do. You need to turn that 0 into a 1. You need to solve one question. And that's all you ever do. Solve one question and then solve another question. And sometimes people just have this like, well, I have to get 175 or I have to get 170, whatever. And that means, in order to do that, I really have to finish. And I hear what you're saying about slow down and don't worry about the clock and focus on accurate. I hear you. But to get a 175, I have to finish, don't I? And it's like, yeah, all right, but I don't, like finishing isn't going to do it. You have to get them right or else they don't count. So get them right. And then we'll see how many you finish. But if you gave me or Eric a test that only had the first 22 questions from each section, we would still score 170 something because we would just have extra time to get all of those right. We just wouldn't make any mistakes on 1 through 22, and we would be guaranteed scoring 170 something. We would bubble in random guesses for 23, 24, 25.
I was trying to do the math to see whether that was even possible, but yes, if you add in the possibility of random bubbling, then I think that takes us over the top. Yeah.
I'm pretty sure. And it would be easier to do it that way, frankly, than it would be if you're anonymous and you don't have that strong of a mastery of the test. It's hard to do that volume of it and also get them right.
Yeah.
You're going to do better by letting it be okay to run out of time and randomly guess on a couple questions. They're probably the hardest ones anyway. And you're going to just randomly guess on a couple questions at the end. Every once in a while, you get one right for free. That's fine. Use your time wisely to solve the questions that you're actually going to do. I'll leave it there.
Thanks, Anonymous. Email daily@lsatdemon.com if you'd like to ask us a question or share some LSAT or law school admissions news. Thanks for listening.